very interesting guy. He defines himself as an artist, as an ignorant, but as somebody who's very interested in placing life at the center of everything. You work in collaborative environments dealing with strategies and organizations. In your day-to-day, you move around the design of innovation processes, strategic consulting, and today you're going to be presenting what you've been doing since confinement in the put an end to this curve platform. And now I'd like to introduce you to a second speaker, Mr. Aitor Abesia from Zambrana. He is the Lord Mayor, and he's going to be speaking, the title of his presentation is Aging is not a synonym of losing quality of life, and its adaptation to the COVID-19 crisis. So, without further ado, let's hand the floor over to Ricardo Antón. I'm so excited, but also nervous to give a talk in front of a lot of people. It's been months. So, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation. I've come to talk to you about our initiative called Stop the Curve. I'm here because this is something that many people could tell us about. Curve in Spanish is curve like in a road, so brake before you reach the curve, but it's the bend. Okay, so thinking about the pandemic, right now we're obsessed with COVID, but perhaps the most important pandemic that that's been with us is that of an individual sort of way of doing things, this individualistic way of doing things. We somehow don't know how to collaborate, so therefore, if the virus is, we're learning from the virus, is it teaching us something? If it's teaching us something, I hope it will help us collaborate so that when we go back to normal, if we go back to a new reality, as they call it, I hope we'll still remember that things like not just facing the virus, but the rest of the challenges is something that we'll do in collaboration, by cooperating and helping each other. This is a project that was started by the government in Aragon. And a few days before we were confined, we said, well, something serious about to happen. They were thinking about the prestige and those oil leaks at sea, and they remembered what serious consequences this brought. And now they were saying, well, this is going to be different because this is going to be spilling over everybody's homes. People won't know what to do, stuck at home. So people from the government started to think about these things. They started to think together with other networks, and they started calling people. And so right from the start, this Stop the Curve is a project that many different stakeholders joined. it's not just governments from other autonomous regions. They called governments from other autonomous regions, but they also got in touch with associations, with people they held a relationship with, because the idea was to see how to involve everybody and come up with a melting pot, with a mix of different people with different profiles. So that's one of the good things about this project. That is, together we're stronger sort of thing. So we need to do something about this, but let's see how we can do it together. The goal, the idea was the following. Okay, we have a situation and we're overwhelmed, and all of a sudden when we're all locked down with a new situation we'd never faced before, how are we going to do this? So we started thinking as to how to give way to collaborations in order to slow down the curve or to learn to live in lockdown, but through mutual support. So that was the first motivation that we saw in here. It's like an open platform that's built as we go. It's something. In the first 24 hours, one first web site was set up. Things went very fast. It was like nothing of what was happening was a perfect model, but it was a minimally viable model, something that's been improving, things that started becoming obsolete because they were replaced by newer things or improvements. Because since it's one of the first things that were set up, many people use this as a reference space. It's a platform with over 100,000 visits, and that's become a reference digital spaces in the midst of this situation. And it works as a matrix. It works as a matrix for many other experiences. So we start seeing initiatives starting in order to see how to support each other in confinement. So it's like a repository in order to try and learn from what others are doing, from what other initiatives are doing. So it became like a big repository with different tiers, with different social and citizens innovation initiatives. The project took a very important qualitative and quantitative leap, and you can see it on this map. Here you see something very important, and that is the initiative of a company that had already started working with this sort of free software that allows for replicability and for fast adaptation. Here, this brings together people who need help, people who can offer help, and intermediaries. A very important thing in the map is that it generated a great degree of replicability in other territories, in other countries, from different territories, whether they be large or small. Through new technologies, this is something that started growing very quickly. So in very short time, our strategy became present in many other countries and many networks, especially mainly a Latin American one. Well, first of all, because of the language, and also because of prior relationships, people who were already working there and who were in touch with us. So the project, how can a project start working so quickly? Well, because there's a bunch of people who are involved through tools. Of course, We don't start thinking, well, we need to come up with some sort of flowchart. No, they're like emerging tasks that have to be carried out. It's true that, as usual, there are some nodes that are more active than other, but it's very easy to somehow join a project like this. There's a network made up by over 300 people who, through video calls, get together and start organizing themselves in order to see how to do things.
And other projects, well, in several days you get together to design other things or other actions. So it's taken us sometimes a month and a half, and it seems that all the things that happened there, it's like a lifetime, but it was only a month and a half. And the first round of projects has to do, in particular, with situations that had to do with the fact of being under lockdown or having to stop the curve. And many of these things had to do with, well, the manufacturing of masks. In other words, projects that were related to the lockdown situation and the pandemic. And then there was a second stage, and we were thinking about what was going to happen at a later stage. And these are the questions that were asked before. So we did another stage that was called joint challenges. And we tried to go for less emergent projects, and what we tried to do was recover those people that were already working on these projects in order to achieve continuity. And in these processes, we gave them support, and we developed another 363 projects in which more than 1,000 people were involved that became engaged in different manner in developing these projects. Let's take a look at some data. More than 500,000 people used the platform during those moments of lockdown only in Spain. And then what we did was carried out another activity, which was the festival Stop the Curve. I think that was on May the 2nd, that also wanted to give visibility to whatever had been done and how that had been done. And this was an activity that I think lasted 12 hours, if I'm not wrong. And this was watched by 14,000 people. And it's not that it was important for there to be 14,000 people watching, but I think that the interesting thing about this is that there were lots of people that felt engaged and committed in relation to what was going on there. So there was a sort of a community, a diffuse community around the project. And I think that that is something that is significant in this project. Well, many other things happened, and different spin-offs appeared. One that, well, just to situate you or to clarify things, we have these windows that join, and this was an initiative, well, that is based on the situation we saw of the people that are at nursing homes and how we can't be with them and how can we visit them. And sometimes the digital gaps were very deep. So there was a project that had to do with that, how to connect these people. And this, well, this is not based on a pre-planned idea, but it was devised by an engineer from Huesca called Alberto. And, well, based on the solution that he implemented to speak to his grandmother, because he gave her a tablet, and that's how they could connect. So if I've used that, why don't we do this with others? So through the Aragon government, which is the Laboratory for Citizens Innovation, the idea was to implement this together with his support. And that's how they managed to get 566 tablets with their own memory cards so that they can be used at 379 nursing homes. And that there was also a team of volunteers that provided technical and logistic support for that to be able to operate correctly. And they gave support to something like 28,000 users, and many minutes during which people can cover that digital gap. And there are many other projects too that have related to Stop the Curve. I think that Stop the Curve should be looked at as if it were a major catalyst of the many things that were happening, and what it was trying to do was well, push things along little by little or slowly so that things could work properly. And I could talk about more projects, but I'm afraid that I don't have enough time. So I'm going to focus on something else that happened during Stop the Curve. And when we set up common challenges, we thought that we were being overwhelmed by the emergency. So we didn't want the same thing to happen to us again. In previous occasions where there's a very big peak of solidarity and collaboration to address an emergency, but then in our daily lives, this became de-articulated. So in this project, a group of people that were thinking about this concern, well, we got together under what we call colaboratorio or co-laboratory. And it wasn't at that point in time, but how can we articulate the citizens' innovation ecosystem in a sustainable manner beyond emergencies? How can we make citizens' innovation be valued in life as something that belongs to our everyday existence? And let's say that this is something that we did for, well, I think it was 4 or 5 days we got together, and it's a process that is still maintained, it's still alive, and there are lots of stakeholders involved in Spain, and we want to know how to make ourselves visible, how to establish a map, and how can we make people understand what citizens' innovation means. And there's another side of things that has to do with building infrastructures and resources, because when Stop the Curve arose, we had to generate all of the infrastructures and see what people could contribute. So we thought, well, let's see if the next time we can organize things better, or let's see how we can use infrastructures over time. And here you have a link that connects to a manifest that says that now we have to support citizens' innovation. So it was this idea of how citizens and public issues have to find a greater correlation. And we talk about co-governance, but how do we co-govern ourselves, not only between institutions, but between the organized civil and non-organized civil society? And how can that be done? And this is one of the things that's one of the challenges, this new reality. How should we try to make things not be so disassociated between the public sphere and the citizens themselves? And these are some of the challenges that we've been working on that have to do with Stop the Curve. And this is something that Raúl has been working on, Raúl Olivan, who's working for the Aragon government. And it's interesting because they have brought together whatever has to do with social innovation and public innovation, and they are also dealing with volunteers. And I think that it's a very interesting mixture or blend, and they've presented something that they call the HIP, the Hexagon for Public Innovation, which has to do with institutions that learn. How can you transform the institutions we have that were created with this idea of upholding the well-being, the welfare state, when we can see that it's now not sustainable? And we have this Eurocentric approach to the state that says that this has to be turned around to see how we can sustain it. But, well, this HIP considers things that before Stopping the Curve were implicit but now have become more explicit, which has to do with thinking in an open manner and thinking about transdisciplinary issues. And we have to think about interconnections too, to do things quickly and in an agile manner and through prototypes. And before, when we spoke about the nursing homes, do they have to be cooperatives? I think that if we were to discuss this with the affected people, that would tell us how to do this in a collaborative manner with all of these stakeholders involved. And then there's a part that has to do with technologies that is related to how in Stop the Curve that was very important. Technologies, if they are open source, this means that the model has been able to expand, and technology should not be a gap, but rather something that opens up the possibilities of being connected. I'm running out of time, but I wanted to present some ideas, and I think that this could be very polemic in relation to what has happened to us. Well, this project of mutants and ponds, well, this is not developed by any kind of stakeholder, but rather Sorry, I was hitting the microphone there. What we have is stakeholders with very different characteristics, because the challenges we have are complex and they are multi-level, and we need to have this combination. This idea of using these prefixes so that what we have, isn't working. It's not working as well as it should, and we have to turn things around. So these prefixes, I think, can help us think in a completely different manner. And the same applies to this term innovation ecosystems. We are giving it names and we're separating things, but what we have to do is bring them together. Perhaps something that I mentioned before that is essential is how to, by building silos, we can be specific about certain tasks. But let's say that being friendly, and when we spoke about friendly cities, well, this only covers part of the terrain. But if we think about being age-friendly for senior citizens, but if we then consider people with disabilities or women or migrants or just for people at large, we'd possibly create friendly cities. But what we are trying to do is find niches that we cannot connect to a sufficient degree. So this idea Well, in my last minute, I have to put my mask on now that I've sprayed everybody with my breath. So if we have to give names to this, we talk about an open society, and we have to try to achieve the highest level of subsidiarity and the value of distributing things. I think that at the beginning I said I could be here, but it could be somebody else. And if there were a presentation in Granada, it could also happen. There's not only one person that can talk about stop the curve, but many. And the part of the things that I've said, I don't know how they were done because I was doing other things, but that happened, and that was just like magic. So distributed B2B network is a very important thing. Yes, I'm finishing now. So to finish very quickly now, trust, I think that is essential. This was implemented because there were trust networks that already existed, and this is why it was possible to activate them so quickly, and something that was explicit, that we knew how to articulate. And then we have diverse capitals. Each one of us has lots of things to contribute. We have to identify these things, and we have all the roles and capitals that are very important. And then, well, bringing together the different levels of governing and living. We've spoken about many things that have been by institutions, but what's important, what the neighbors have been doing with the networks that are set up to give out food. And then the importance of combining local and global things and the open source technologies that make it possible to extend this and replicate it. And I'm going to finish with Berria. We published a paper that I think summarized all of these key issues, how in a pandemic, what things had happened. So these are things that could be replicated, and I'm going to keep quiet, and I'm finishing here. So let's all do this together, and let's collaborate, and let's put an end to the virus, but not an end to our collaboration. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ricardo Antón. She's now speaking in Basque. I'm afraid that we have to wait until she speaks in Spanish.